As a former UMWA coal miner myself, mine superintendent and manager of mine safety and health research at NIOSH, I really thank you for the opportunity to discuss provisions in H.R. 5663. It is agonizing that we are again at a point where major underground coal disaster has shattered the lives of so many people, and that industry and MSHA just seem to be powerless from stopping these disasters. We had only one such event during the period 1991 through 2000. Thus, it appears it can be done. The Tripartite Mine Safety Technology and Training Commission, which I chaired in 2006, indicated the key to achieving this goal includes processes that, number one, require major hazard-related risk management, which must now involve the screening of mines with high risk for disasters and serious injuries. Second, facilitate the creation of a safety culture of prevention of hazardous conditions that could lead to major hazard events, and I'll add serious injuries as well. It is imperative that these processes must drive adoption of best practices and building a culture of prevention. The objective is to ensure that everyone in the organization involved with the mine, top to bottom, performs the critical task of their jobs aimed at removing threatening conditions with painstaking thoroughness. The same approach must be used in MSHA. The Commission noted that industry has to fundamentally change the management approaches and the work practices taken to fulfill basic safety requirements. We recognize that simple regulatory compliance alone is not sufficient to mitigate significant risk. Now, since 2007, my graduate student and I worked on developing an effective and straightforward tool to analyze the risk of underground coal mines. The Safe Performance Index model contains essentially the same elements discussed in the new pattern of recurring non-compliance or accidents provisions for screening high-risk mines. The accident-related elements that we used included the no days lost incidence rate, the non-fatal days lost incidence rate, and an adjusted severity measure where statutory charge days are added in there. The citation-related elements we used included the number of citations per 100 inspection hours, the number of S&S citations per 100 inspection hours, and the number of unwarrantable failure and imminent danger withdrawal orders per 1,000 inspection hours. I'll give some detailed results on the SPI modeling of an 82 mine sample in my more extensive written comments. The most salient points related to HR 5663 are summarized as follows. Our sample represents about 18% of the producing mines, and I'm convinced that the SPI works very well in objectively determining high-risk mines. Similar discriminatory power could be achieved with an appropriate application of the new pattern of recurring noncompliance or accidents provisions of HR 5663. I believe the key to success depends on a judicious weighting of the components delineated in the subsection on rulemaking as specified in paragraph 8b to determine the threshold criteria. The worst performing 10% of mines in our study were characterized by different measures. Some had a high injury rate and a high elevated citation rate, while others had either a very high injury rate or a very high elevated citation rate. 4 MSHA pattern potential pattern of violation mines were on the list, and 1 was a longwall mine. 3 of the worst performing 8 mines got there because of a terrible severity measure. 2 of them had good S&S and order rates. Thus, I reemphasize that the injury experience must be integrated with the citation experience in considering mines for pattern status. Regarding benchmark criteria for the 90-day evaluations, I'd suggest that the major hazard-related S&S citations and orders should immediately have a higher benchmark to the 25th percentile of the top-performing mines. A pattern mine should alternatively be permitted to pass the benchmark for citations if the S&S rate is reduced by 70%, provided that reduction of 70% takes the mine's S&S rate to one that is below the mean for the grouped mines. The target of having mines in the top 25th percentile set forth in the bill for reducing the injury rate appears appropriate. Regarding termination of pattern status, both the S&S rate and the order rate need to be considered, and the 80% reduction of the rates needs to be coupled with the caveat that the improved S&S and order rate should both be less than the mean for grouped mines. For injuries, the performance benchmark of the 25th percentile of top-performing mines is a reasonable challenge. We're trying to build a culture of prevention. The goal in this legislation should be to ensure that a low-performing mine that deserves to be placed on pattern status should be compelled to build a new safety culture that focuses day to day on preventing major hazard-related conditions and lost time injuries. I commend the committee for inclusion of several important provisions. First is the independent investigation of mining disasters. Second is ensuring that MSHA inspects mines during normal operations on all shifts. I do recommend that MSHA inspectors should also perform a major hazard sweep at a mine at the beginning of a quarterly inspection. Third is allowing MSHA to invoke justifiable mitigating circumstances for an identified pattern mine. In closing, I do believe that the new pattern of recurring noncompliance or accidents provisions will be a much-needed improvement of the current pattern of violations process. The one-year remediation process, coupled with quarterly monitoring of performance, should inculcate in pattern mines adoption of practices and processes aimed at building a safety culture of prevention, which is necessary to eliminate mine disasters and ultimately all fatalities and serious injuries. This concludes my oral comments. Be happy to take questions.